Kait and Kurt here. We just got back from 3 weeks of bikepacking, hut to hut in the Alps, on 4 different trips. In total, we climbed about 70,000 feet and descended 130,000 feet, the difference of which was made possible by trams and shuttles. And so this video
We're going to talk about our bike setups, why we chose the gear that we did, what we carried for clothing, for repair kits, for electronics, that sort of thing. And hopefully that answers some questions that we always receive about just what did you carry for that kind of adventure.
If you have any questions, just reach out to us. So this is how my bike was set up for our trip to the Alps. We ran Pivot Trail 429 frames with 120 millimeters of travel in the rear, Fox 36 fork with 140 millimeters of travel in the front, Industry 9 EN 315 carbon wheels with 32 spokes. Kurt ran the Trail 280s. We both ran Maxxis Assegai 2.5s in the front. I ran a Maxxis Minion DHR in the rear, and Kurt ran an Assegai in the rear as well. Our drivetrains were both Shimano XTR with 28 tooth chain rings in the front and 10 to 51 cassettes. And our brakes were XTR with Shimano's largest rotors, the 203 millimeter rotors. We both ran through multiple sets of brake pads. We both ran the Shimano XT trail pedals for the stability and comfort, and 9.8 fall line droppers, ergon saddles and grips, and our bars and stems were a little bit different to just adjust for our own personal needs. So how did I load my bike for a multi-day ride, staying in huts and bivvying? This is my bike setup for this trip in the Alps. And what you see here are all the bags and how they're packed for a few days out, including a bivvy and staying in huts. So to start, for a full suspension bike riding on trail, I try to have the most of the weight along the center of gravity of the bike, and so a lot of it is trying to be over the bottom bracket, which you can't quite see as it's loaded, but once you have my backpack on top of me, that is how it'll work out. In my frame bag, I would have food, some repair stuff, and some electronics. In this little bag, I have a first aid kit. In this little bag, I have a little bit more repair stuff. And then in this little bag, I would have my phone and some food. So you can see it's very spread out. In the front, while this looks like the biggest bag on the bike, and it is the biggest bag, it's also the lightest. This is where my whole sleep kit, layers that I don't need during the day are. And it's actually pretty light, and I can still maneuver my bike. And then in my backpack, I have layers, rain gear, some bulkier, heavier stuff like that, my water, and any food that didn't go in my frame bag. So what did I bring in all those bags for a multi-day trip with a bivvy out in mountain weather? In my backpack, I had layers and essentials that I could need during the day, like my InReach, my bladder, it was 2 liters, my filter, charging stuff, a spare battery, my headlamp, and sunscreen, and a blinky. In this little bag, I had my repair kit. Then with the frame bag, the rest of my repair kit, a pump, a shock pump, and a multi-tool. Also in my backpack were layers that I could wear during the day, like my Patagonia rain pants, rain jacket, they're actually waterproof, a wind jacket, and additional top. In this lower down tube bag, I had my first aid kit and a tube. On my handlebars, my Garmin Edge Solar 1040. And then in my handlebar bag, I had my ride pants, if I wasn't wearing them, a base layer for the nighttime, my puffy jacket, spare warmer gloves, sacred socks that I don't wear during the day, underwear, and then an elephant's foot, which is just a short sleeping bag, sleeping pad, and bivvy. And then this is what I wore: shorts and t-shirt, socks, shoes, helmet.
And so what did I carry for the hut-based bike packing that we did in the Alps? It's a little different from what Kate shared for the trips where we had some bivvying along the way. and this was for a little bit fouler weather along the way, some cold temperatures and a lot of rain. So some legitimately waterproof Patagonia rain gear, a lightweight down jacket, a wind jacket, a couple long sleeve layers for insulation while moving, hat and gloves, and spare socks, lightweight long underwear bottoms for sleeping, some Patagonia ride pants, and for sleeping also in the huts, a really lightweight synthetic sleeping bag that would be marginally enough if we ended up getting stuck and having to sleep outside for a night. And most of this was in my handlebar bag, and just a few things that I wanted handy during the day went in my backpack, and the rain gear in my very small seat bag. Other things that I carried were basically camera stuff, a little bit of electronic things, toiletries, water filter, and a bladder. And all that went in the Patagonia backpack. Also brought knee pads for the big descents and some hike-a-bike friendly shoes for all the walking to get to the top. And then what kind of electronics did we carry? This is something I always try to keep to a minimum, since the last thing I want to deal with in the backcountry is lots of electronic stuff. This was the bulk of it right here. We carried a Garmin Edge 1040 Solar for navigation. This has an awesome map screen on it for watching where you're going and figuring out where you want to go. And it also recharges from the sun as you go, and so didn't have to recharge this on any of the 4 or 5 day trips we were out. Carried a Garmin InReach just in case we needed something like that. Had our smartphones along the way, some spare batteries for things, battery pack to recharge off. Didn't use a dynamo hub, so there's no need for that in this kind of trip. Light for if we end up caught out after dark, but we didn't really plan on doing night riding along the way. And then camera stuff for taking pictures. And the last thing was just a dry bag to get all this stuff in for every time it rained and keeping it all dry. All right, and what did the repair kit look like that we carried in the Alps? This is everything that was in it, and it was a combination of kind of my daily backcountry repair kit with a few extra things since we were going to be gone for a while. A lot of it is centered around keeping tires inflated, spare tube, patches for that, repair kit for the tube that includes plugs and everything you need to stitch up a sliced sidewall, and shock pump and tire pump there. Other things that we had, a couple spare spokes for our Industry 9 wheels, assortment of spare parts and brake pads, little bolts and things like that, wolf tooth chain lube. I always have a lighter in my repair kit. Always have a spare derailleur hanger. We had a little collar for a dropper in case we did have any issues with those, which we didn't. And then a few different tools. This is the wolf tooth in case system that we carried. I always also carry a small pliers like that with a knife and other things on it, and little chain pliers for dealing with chain issues, which we also didn't have any of.